All right, good morning, everyone. Okay, just to clarify again about some admin work, go to the CCC YouTube channel. You can watch the video again, playback, reverse, fast speed, slow motion, up to you. And in the description section, there will be a slide, the Google Drive, where you can download the slides. Then when you download the slides, you go towards the last few slides at the very end. That's where all the links to the different videos, websites, and other different things. You just click, and you can watch the additional material, read the additional material at your own time. Okay? I've inserted these links for all the sets of slides for all the classes, so even whether it's the first week, second week, third week, all those slides will have the same links so that you can have access to those materials. Now, today we're going to be covering chapter 1 and chapter 2. To start off, we are going to have a quiz, but I've decided that we won't have the quiz now, we'll have the quiz a little bit later. Okay, a little bit later, so that everyone can participate in the quiz. This is a QR code. You just go onto this, scan the code. There'll be 6 questions, multiple choice. Just click. You will get and submit, and you will know your scores immediately. I no need to mark for you. Okay? All right. This is the map that we've been talking about. First missionary journey, before the book of Galatians was written, Paul went to Galatia. He went to Cyprus first and then Galatia. All right? The different places that he went to, Antioch, Iconium, Lystra, Derbe, and of course they went to Cyprus because Barnabas is from Cyprus. Okay? This is the same overview we've talked before. The key dates, 49 AD, Acts chapter 12, Herod died in AD 44, Acts 18, Gallio, the proconsul of Achaia, and these are some of the key same information that we've talked about. Now, in chapter 1, chapter 2, this is a set of headings. You know, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1 to 5 is some greetings. Paul writes greetings to the church in the churches of Galatia. And then in chapter 1, verse 6 to 10, he talks about there's only one gospel. One gospel. And then in verse 11 to 24, he talks about how he's been called by God, how God has revealed the message, the gospel to him. And then in chapter 2, verse 1 to 10, he talks about his interactions with the Jerusalem Jewish Christian leaders, Peter, James, John. Okay, because by then, John, James had already been beheaded. In chapter 11 to 20, verse 11 to 21, he talks about his interaction with Peter in Antioch and how he opposed Peter and the different reasons why he did so. Now, if you read this other set of description of how they view chapter 1 and chapter 2, you see this person says that, it's an introduction, it's greetings, and then instead of saying, as the previous person, he said here, one gospel only, he describes it as the challenge to freedom in Christ. And then he talks about it being a biography, okay? Paul's revelation. And it's an independent revelation. Independent of what? Independent of human teaching. He didn't learn from man. He didn't learn it from the Judean churches. He didn't learn it from the apostles. He didn't learn it from the circumcision group, the Judaizers. He didn't even learn it from the apostles. And he did not make it up himself out of selfish interests. Now, same set of passages, but using a different description, a different view. And this is what I want to explain to all of us, is that when you read any books, there's no one book that's right. They usually have a particular perspective. They view it from a particular facet, a particular viewpoint. They have a certain emphasis. They have a certain focus. And that's why it's good and helpful to read more than one book or more than one website, more than one text. Because this one see from here, this one see from there, this one see from here, okay? Then you have a what they call a 360-degree view. And then you can then compare the different views, the different writings, the different things that they mention. Then you can then see, you see when you have 8 or 10 views, right? Those that are common is easier to accept. Those that are odd ones, then you have to think twice. Is it really applicable? Let me study it more. Let me investigate more. Okay? Don't just have this, oh, there's one view. Okay? Yes, there's one gospel, but that doesn't mean there's one view. Okay? One gospel does not mean one view. Okay, we'll start with the first point, which is, and we'll go to verse 6 and 7. What do we believe? What is your foundation in your faith? How well do you know the scriptures? Now, Paul mentions that he's astonished. You are quickly deserting me. You turn to a different gospel, which is no gospel at all. You've been thrown into confusion. And this group has perverted the gospel of Christ. Very strong words. Very strong words. If you were the circumcision group, and then this section of the parchment was sent over to you, how you feel? Huh? I got thrown people into confusion, man. Huh? You say I perverted? How dare you? Right? These are very strong words that Paul writes in this letter that is made known to everyone. Now, I know some of us here have not been Christian for very long. Of course, long is very relative. To me, 5 years is not very long. Okay? Now, remember when you're in primary school, right? They tell you about matter. They tell you, plastic, one piece. Then they tell you, actually plastic is made of small little atoms. Then when you go progress, right? They tell you, no, atom is made of neutron and proton and electron. Then after that, if you go to university, they'll tell you, neutron is made out of don't know what, quark, subatomic particles, go. You see, usually when you start something, right, you cannot explain people all the deep things immediately, right? You have to start low, and then you progress. Now, there is no difference in our Christian faith. You have to start low in the faith, just like the Galatians, and then you must make progress. Right? So that's why now you know atom made of subatomic particle, which is made out of okay, if you go to see the spectrometer, you go, amazing. And that is the same thing. As you learn more about the scriptures, you will be amazed. But if you don't learn, you'll never be amazed. You need to grow and understand and study more. And I want to again reiterate, don't be naive. There's not just one viewpoint, which means you need to ask questions. You need to ask why, how come, what's the reason. You need to make comparison. One of the dangerous things that people do is they take one verse from the Bible and they tell you, follow this verse. And what about the other few thousands of verses in the Bible? Ignore. Do we ignore the rest? No. You have to compare it and see what the other verses say as well. Which means you need to know the Bible more. Okay? And this is the point. You see, the Galatian churches were a new church started during the first missionary journey. The knowledge of even Jesus' teaching is limited. Most of them have never met Jesus. Most of them have never met the other apostles. They were not there at the day of Pentecost. They have not had years and years of training. And that's why they were easily confused. And here's the interesting thing. The circumcision group, when they explained things to the Galatian churches, what did they use? They used Old Testament scriptures. And that's why to the Galatian churches, you're using Old Testament. Must be true. Must be true. So you see, what forms the basis of our faith? And I always say this, we must look at the substance of our faith, not just the form. Sunday service start 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. That's a form. You want to have singing with drum, with guitar, with electric keyboard, with a harp. You want to sing standing up, sitting down? This is the form. But what is the substance? The substance is that we want to give our hearts to God. But the form can be a different way, because different people do a different form. Okay? Can you have a tattoo? Okay, we'll talk about that another time. Okay, now, I want to bring us to Exodus 14 and Exodus 32. Because this is about faith. The Israelites have seen the 10 plagues, okay? The Egyptians, Pharaoh has said, you can go. You can balik kampung, go to the promised land. They are now at the Red Sea. They see the Red Sea, and then they see Pharaoh's army behind them. What did they say to Moses? Wow, you stupid fella. Huh? Nowhere to die, bring us all the way here. Like that, if we stay at the Egypt, better ma. At least there we got food to eat. Now we all die here like stupid. What happened to their faith? Did you not see the 10 plagues that God did in Egypt? What happened to their faith? And in Exodus 32, they were at Mount Sinai. Moses went up to the top of Mount Sinai. They saw the thunder, the lightning, the fire, everything, right? And then he was up there for 40 days. And the rest of Israel was down there in the valley. What happened when they waited 40 days, 40 nights? Kanchong king lo. Hey, haven't come back yet, leh. I hungry, leh. Hey, go where? Don't know what to do. Okay lah. Hey, Aaron, let's build a golden calf and then we worship the calf. This should be the real God lah. That Moses, we don't care about him anymore. What happened to their faith? You see, our faith, if it is not deeply rooted in the scriptures, in God, then it is a very flexy faith, right? Very flexy. It's based on what? Circumstances. When the 10 plagues was happening, nothing happened to the Israelites in Egypt. Whoa, God is awesome! When the Pharaoh's army is approaching and there's no means of escape, circumstances, no good. Moses, you stupid fella, why did you bring us here to die? And we can have the same thing. Our faith in God depends on our circumstances. Good or no good. Got money, no money. Happy, not happy. Health good, health no good. Relationship good, relationship not good. Got hair, no hair. White hair, black hair. Big tummy, small tummy. Fit. There's so many circumstances that will affect and attack your faith. But we must choose. Do we allow our faith to be rooted in the scriptures and in God, or in our circumstances? Feelings. Every day got feeling, right? You wake up and you see, my wife never put the towel properly again. And you feel, angry. This one didn't happen, that one didn't happen. You have a lot of feelings. When the Israelites saw the army, what was the feeling they had? Fear. Worry. Worry about the children. Worry about the future. When we are filled with fear, this is one of the most dangerous feelings we will have. It will affect our faith. And how can we overcome our fear? We need to go back to the scriptures. We need to go back to God. Peer pressure. When Aaron was all alone, right? When Moses with him, wow, full of faith. Moses not around. He had to deal with the 12 tribal leaders. He's alone. Then what happened? He crumbled. He crumbled because he was under pressure from his peers. They were saying, no lah, Moses gone already lah. He's not coming back. You see all the fire and the lightning. He probably got fried already lah. He already char kway teow already. We better get ready to go to the promised land by ourselves. Aaron, under pressure. Okay lah, let's build a golden calf together. Peer pressure can make us make bad decisions. Success plan. When they were there, what was the plan? We're going to cross the Red Sea. Cross the Red Sea, you crazy, yeah? You see the water how deep or not? How to cross? Siew fella. This kind of plan you want me to go? I'd rather go back to the Egyptians, man. See, if our faith is dependent on a plan, our faith is dependent on the success, our faith will be weak. Our faith needs to be dependent on God, on the scriptures. Now, imagine you are Moses, right? God said, I promise you, you will go to the promised land. Abraham, I promise you, your people will go back to the promised land. And here's Moses. He's at the Red Sea. Circumstances, no good. Walao, this army coming. The success plan, cross the Red Sea. How to cross the Red Sea? Under peer pressure. All the people say, clamoring, hey, Moses! He's feeling, he also scared, what? But what did he hold on to? God promised me in Mount Sinai. He promised me when we were in Egypt. He promised me when we were at the burning bush. He promised Abraham. And all these years, has not God proved his faithfulness? Has he not kept his promises? What did Moses hold on to? The promises and faithfulness of God. And that's why when everybody else was trying to run away and give up on God, Moses stood firm because his faith, his foundation, wasn't on circumstances, feelings, peer pressure, success, or the plan. It was based on God's promises and God's faithfulness. And that is when your belief is strong. You know what the interesting thing is? So we have to choose. Are we going to respond to the external circumstances, our internal, or are we going to respond to God? And one of the things means that, you see, we have to accept we have weaknesses. We do. Okay? Ask Joyce. Siew got no weaknesses. No, of course Siew got weaknesses. But we accept our weaknesses and we accept that God can overcome even our weaknesses. Because the dangerous thing that we tend to do is, because of our weaknesses, therefore our mind gets filled with lots of ideas about what God should be like or what God should do. And then we project our ideas onto God, onto church. And then we say this is right. That's not the good foundation that we need to have. The foundation we need to have is the foundation like what Moses had. Our foundation is on God's promises, his faithfulness. Okay. Now, one of the other things is that, okay, remember I told you got to read different books, get different view, different whatever, right? Now, this fella write this book, he pastor for 20 years. Another fella pastor 10 years. Another pastor got PhD. The other pastor got MBA, a master degree. The other pastor got this. The other pastor went to Africa. The other pastor went to South. Who you listen to? Who right? Who wrong? What's your scoring system? Ranking system, right? PSLE score. Give you certain percentage. Oh, this one you got more. Oh, you score the highest. Therefore, I choose you. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. There's no formula. There's no system. Who can come up with such a system? So the only thing you can go back to is what? Go back to the Bible lah. Because you know what? Nobody here has a direct access to God anymore. And if anybody say he had a vision from God, yeah, IMH is calling. The other thing that we can do is we can refer to what they call the patristics, which is the 1st century, 2nd century writings of the church leaders. This is our frame of reference. The Bible, 1st, 2nd century patristics, because these are the closest to the original, right? These are the closest to the original. Now, every year, or maybe I should say every year, but Society is changing constantly. Okay? 15 years ago, who got smartphone? Who got mobile data? I still remember the day when this brother was telling me, hey bro, you know, they're going to, Singapore government going to install 1 megabyte broadband into people's homes. And I was like, wow, that's amazing, 1 megabyte. Because those days the dial-up is 56 kilobyte lah. Right? 1 megabyte was like, wow, so fast ah. Nowadays what megabyte? It's gigabyte already, right? It's changing. But here's the thing. When there's changes, do we follow the changes blindly? Do we fit those issues into the Bible? Or do we fit the Bible into those issues? You see, it depends on which lens you're looking at. If you're trying to look at the Bible through those changes in society, that's not how we should do it. You should look at society through the lens of the Bible. That's how you deal with current issues. Things happen in politics. Things happen in the technology, media, okay? LGBTQIA2S+. How do you deal with it? Oh, I listen to all those people, because they should know, they're the expert. Is it our goal to please and appease every segment of society? What does Paul say? Am I now trying to gain the approval of men or God? We are trying to win the approval of God. And that's why you look at society through the lens of the Bible and not the reverse. Okay? Now, Romans 12:2, it says, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, hopefully another time I'll talk about this very hot topic, which is called social justice, okay? And I tell you, when I explain to you some of the things about social justice that's in the Bible, you will have a hard time accepting it, okay? But we need to, most importantly of all the things, remember we are focused on God, right? God's promises, God's faithfulness. And what is one of the most important of God's promises is that He loves us. He loves all of us. And we need to always look at it through such lens that God loves. And then when that will be the thing that helps to decide how we do certain things. Okay? All right, let's move on. Oh dear. Okay. I just want to refer to Deuteronomy 23:19. It says, God is not human that He should lie, or not a human being that He should change His mind. One of the assurances we have, that God does not change. The God of Moses, the God of Abraham, the God of David, the God of Elijah, the God of Jesus, the God of Peter, Paul, is the same. Okay? We change. Right? Some people support Liverpool, and then over the weekend they didn't. Some people support Manchester United, and then last weekend they decided to stop. Okay? Because people change. Okay? People change. Right? But these are some verses to reinforce that God does not change. And that's why our foundation remains Jesus and His teaching. There is no new message. One gospel. The gospel does not change. Substance does not change. The form can change. 1 service, 2 service, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Saturday night service. That's the form. That's not the substance. The form can always change. Okay? In Jesus' time, was there gambling? Was there prostitution? Was there bribery? Dishonest scales? Divorce? Theft? It was there. But smoking, tattoo, actually some drugs, online activities. Those days, don't have lah. So we need to go back to the Bible and see how do we deal with these new things. Okay? Now let's go to the second point and talk about belong. We're going to study about Paul's collaboration with the apostles. In chapter 1, verse 18, 19. He said, after 3 years, I went to Jerusalem to get acquainted with Cephas, meaning Peter, and stayed with him 15 days, and James, the Lord's brother. Have you spent time with anyone for 15 days? Other than your spouse? In fact, even your spouse, you never spend time 15 days straight, right? Because they can't stand you if they see you for 15 days. You see, this is very important because building relationships take time. You want to belong, you have to invest in relationships. You have to invest your time. You have to invest your heart. You need to be willing to listen. You need to be willing to be vulnerable and get hurt. You know, imagine if you were Peter, right? What's in your mind? Wow, this Paul, did he really change or not? Is he just trying to infiltrate and be a spy and then find out where we all are and then give our names to an address to the Jews and then they're going to kena tangkap, get caught, and then he'll repeat the same thing again. Maybe he's a deep sleeper agent, right? Wow, too many all those spy movies already. Imagine if you're one of the relatives of the Christians who died, who was arrested and died because of Paul's actions. And then now you say, this murderer also you can accept. What kind of church is this? Siew one. That fella's a killer. How can you accept him? Someone make him a leader some more. You're okay or not? Imagine when people are whispering such things about you in the background. Would you want to be a leader? When you're being exposed to such things. But you see, Paul, motivated by God's love, God's grace, he was willing to go through all this. He spent the time. He was willing to accept the criticism, the slanted eyes, the stares, the insecurity that he would feel. The obstacles he was willing to overcome so that he could get there. And that's why we always try to make sure we spend time with one another. Please invest time with your groups, with your leaders, with people around you. Physical presence is important, but your hearts and your mind more so. Your hearts and your minds. Oops. Okay, so, how well do we work together? Are we willing to be engaged? Are you open? When people tell you their weaknesses, do you judge them? Or do you help them? Do you love them? How well are we in listening to advice? Even accepting rebukes, to Timothy 3:16. What if people don't agree with you? What do you say? How are we building unity? Now, most of us are working. Most of us are in some sports group before. What is the one thing that helps your group, your team to be unified? Is when you have one purpose. One purpose. Of course, in the company, what's the one purpose? Make money lah. But when you're working on a project, is to complete the project on time, within budget, without killing everyone. Right? Especially if you're building something, like some plant or whatever it is. Okay? So you see, in the world, we understand this is what it takes to build unity. And that's why after work, what do? Go drinking, right? This is what the favorite thing, right? Go drinking. Is to build unity because they want to be together. Because they know you work so hard already. At least I hope you've been working hard. But anyway, you've been working hard the whole day. They want to so-called unwind together. In church, it's the same. If you're working together to build the church, you're working together to build your group, you're working together to whatever. Have a class, doing the kids' kingdom, ushering, AV system, whichever it is. You work so hard, of course you want to unwind together and build relationships together. But we need to be willing to invest. Now, remember Paul went to Gentiles. Peter went to the Jews, right? So, are they mutually exclusive? Did Peter only preach to Jews? Did Paul only preach to Gentiles? Of course, the answer is no, because the message is for all. It's just that Paul went to more Gentile cities. And he would always start by going to the synagogue first, if there was one. And then usually he knows that not many people in the synagogue will listen. So you stay a couple of weeks. Boleh already? Okay, now I move to the Gentiles. You see his pattern? He didn't abandon the Jews. It's not mutually exclusive. And Peter, of course, did not do the same. Or rather, he did the same. He would generally spend more time with the Jews because most of the cities that he preached were mostly Jewish. But he would also, if any Gentile approached, he would also accept them. There's no mutually exclusive. There's no, I only reach out to people of my nationality, people of my same hobby, same habit, same height, same belt size, same shoe size, same interests. We don't just make friends in church to people who are similar to us or who we have been assigned a certain task. We supposed to love all. There's no mutually exclusive. And here's the very interesting thing that we find is that, you know, there are specialist Christians. I only evangelize. I'm very good at evangelism. My salvation, my Christian faith is about my evangelism. So bro, can you do other things? Oh, no, I only evangelize. Then the other side is, I only serve, I don't evangelize. I only do quiet time, I don't do other things. You know, what kind of faith is that? You're a specialist? You only do one thing? Your faith is just that one thing? No. Our faith is everything. There are certain things that we do better. And we tend to do more of it. And we can help more people in that area. But we're not a specialist. There's no specialist Christian. We are Christians. Okay? And of course, later on he talks about helping the poor, which they both agreed to do so. Okay, now, the circumcision group, how did it start off? It actually started off because the Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem, here, they decided that, you know what, because of the Roman influence, we need to preserve our Jewish customs. Okay? Preserve our Jewish customs. So in Jerusalem and in Judea, you see a lot of Jewish influence. And if you're a Jewish Christian, you'll be like, oh, I'm also actually Jewish, even though I'm a Christian. So maybe I follow along. And then when you start to follow along, what happened? Then you're like, hey, our church, we should also follow along, man. Hey, I know you're a Gentile. I know you're a Gentile. But you know what? This is a Jewish church. So you should also follow Jewish customs. So it spreads from Orthodox Jews to Jewish Christians to the Gentile Christians. It spreads to Peter and even Barnabas, who lives in Antioch, in a Gentile city, and he tells Gentiles, hey, be more Jewish lah. We are a Jewish religion ma. Even though Jesus Christ also is a Jew. Who was willing to break the chain of negative influence? Was it Peter? No. His apostle? Was it the Jerusalem elders? Actually, not really. It was Paul. Only Paul at that time willing to stand up and speak up and say, no, this is not what Jesus taught us. He did not teach us that you need to get circumcised to be a Christian. He said, we are free. And he brought them back to Jesus. Was it tough? It was tough. But he was willing to be that person to break the chain. And of course, in Galatians 5:9, and you know, Corinthians and all these other scriptures there, it mentions about the yeast. Remember the yeast? You put it in a big batch of dough, it's spread. And then before long, the whole mix is contaminated lah, okay? In a negative way, not in a positive way. All these scriptures is how yeast, because he's talking about the yeast of the Pharisees. And it's the same thing. If we are not willing to speak up, the negative influences that comes from the world comes in to our church, to you. You need to speak up, just like Paul. Okay, conflict resolution. Now, remember, Paul and Peter did not meet very often. They were never in the same church or same region. Why did Peter trust Paul? Who's older? Peter. Who's been leader longer? Peter. Who's been trained by Jesus directly? Peter. Who knows the Bible better? Probably Paul lah. Who knows the apostles better? Peter. Who lead church longer? Peter. Everything Peter. But he listened to Paul. Why? Why could he trust Paul? How did they decide? Because they went back to the scriptures. They went back to what Jesus said. Not who's older, who this, who that. They went back to the Bible. And that's why in Acts 15, right, when you see the council of Jerusalem, they made the decision, right? And then they decided. This taking assumption that it was done after Acts 15 is after the book of Galatians was written. Who decided? Was it the circumcision group? The circumcision group didn't decide. Was it Paul? Paul didn't decide. It was the council, which is made up of the elders and the apostles. They made a decision. How did they make the decision? They had a lot of meeting, and then they decided, right? And it's probably quite an open meeting, but the scriptures, book of Acts, is not very detailed. How many meetings did they have? Don't know. How many people attended? Don't know. Did they take minutes? Don't know. Did they got video? Don't know. Did they put it online? Don't know. Right? But once the decision is made, they go. Now, the scriptures is silent. After this, what did the circumcision group do? Don't know. Did they raise a ruckus? Don't know. Did they leave? We also don't know. But chances are they didn't. Why? Because in Romans, which is written about 7 or 8 years later, the issue of circumcision, the issue of following Moses' law is still there in the church in Rome. So it's likely not that most of these people, or at least some of these people, stayed on, because this influence continued to permeate the church over the years. But the decision was made, and they had to go. That's how they resolved their issues. Remember, when Peter did what he did in Antioch, what did Paul do? He confronted him quite openly, right? Publicly. It's not very nice. But that's what he did, because he believed very strongly in the faith. Okay? So, when we are trying to resolve this kind of conflicts, what we need to do is we need to go back to the Bible, we need to engage in discussion, we need to be honest about our feelings, but we need to also trust each other the way that Peter was willing to trust Paul. And you have to abide with the leadership decision, and you must always remember one of the most important principles. The circumcision group is one part of the church. They are not the whole church. They are not the whole church. When we make decision, we need to consider the whole church, not just one segment of the church. And if because of that, this segment does not get what they want, what is your faith going to be? Do you belong or not? Okay, last point, very fast. When you read through these verses, you'll see that Paul is very passionate. Look at the words he uses, right? Astonish. Let them be under God's curse. False believers, hypocrisy, foolish Galatians, bewitched you, foolish, alienators, agitators, go and emasculate themselves. You know what that is? It's a very strong word, right? Hey, you, chop off your hand, chop off your leg. Wow, you okay or not? Why are you so angry? Relax lah, calm down. Sometimes in current world, right, we need to be politically correct. And then we say this kind of passion, overboard lah, overboard, relax. Paul was not. But you see, although he was very passionate, What motivates him? It's love. He calls them brothers 9 times. He is upset, but he loves. He even reminds them, you know, when I was sick, right? He said, God, you would have even willing to give me your eye. Not that they could laugh, okay? Those days, medical, not so good yet. But you see, they did not hold him in contempt. They did not scorn him. They loved him and treated him well. Paul's passion is very clear. Your passion is also very clear. Not to me, but to the people who are close to you and to the people who are around you. Your social media posts, your conversation, how you spend your money, how you spend your free time. It is a reflection of your passion. Paul's passion was God and the church. What is our passion today? Okay, all right, that's the end. These are some of the verse locations which I already showed in the overview, which you can download. But for chapter 1 and 2, these are the few which we will be doing a quiz next week on chapter 1, 7, and then 110, 111, 210, 212, 216, 220, 221. Okay? Okay, these are all the materials. Okay, now we're going to go back to the quiz. Okay, quiz time. All right, this is a QR code. Please scan the QR code. And you scan the QR code, you just answer multiple choice. And then you can, on the spot, submit. And on the spot, you will get an answer, okay? There is no penalty if you don't do as well as you wish. Okay? I repeat, there's no penalty, okay? Just try your best for God. Okay, we'll spend about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. Okay? Any questions about the answers? Any questions about what you have submitted? Anything you want to clarify? Okay, all right, so that's the end of the class. Any questions anybody want to ask about any of the material last week, today, or any questions in general on the book of Galatians? Okay, if not, if you watch the video later on, this last slide also has a QR code where you can send in questions. Okay, so if you can't think of any questions now, don't worry. If during the week you have any questions, just scan the QR code here and submit your question through the form. All right, okay?
All right, thanks Siew for the class.